fellow Americans.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
The Vietnam War and the push for US involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie. The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies. That is war by media. Let us ask ourselves, of the complicit media, which is the majority of the mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think you should be the one to be able to decide when to pull the trigger?
No, sir.
Isn't that what this is about? If you adopt the position that any time you are denied, your particular, and there's 4 groups out there, and inspectors, you're the group you headed, anytime you are denied, that ipso facto requires the United States and the Security Council to act on what they said they would do, which is to use whatever means necessary to take on Saddam Hussein so you can get into that particular facility. Is that not correct? Is that not your position?
Mr. Senator, I have a job to do, or I had a job to do, and that was to disarm Iraq in accordance with the provisions of relevant resolutions.
With all due respect, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm trying to get this as clear as I can. I really mean this now. You have an absolute logic. You put together a very tight syllogism here. You have indicated that your job is to disarm. The only way you can disarm is to have access. The only way you can have access is either with permission on the part of Iraq, or if denied, forced access, right?
Compelled access.
Compelled. Yes. Well, okay, compelled. You sound like the lawyer and I sound like the military guy. I mean, compelled, where I come from, when my old man said you're compelled, it meant I was forced. I mean, it was a real simple proposition. It wasn't much to debate. Now, there is a clear logic to that. And that's what I mean when I say I respect your position. But that means that whenever you choose a target that warrants inspection and you are denied, that ipso facto, at that moment, the only way your position can be satisfied or sustained is if the UN Security Council or the United States, acting unilaterally, uses force to guarantee access. Is not that true?
Yes, sir.
Now, that means that you get to choose the time and place when we would use force, if we use force.
No, sir.
Of course you do. If you choose the site and it's denied.
And we coordinate with the member states to include the United States.
Exactly.
And prior to us going in, we have their agreement that this indeed is an inspection worth doing.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the President now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the Major's. The Major's assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the President have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector. You didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of, you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
Rationality belongs to the cool observers, but because of the stupidity of the average man, he follows not reason but faith, and the naive faith of the proletarian requires necessary illusion and emotionally potent oversimplifications, which have to be provided by myth makers to keep the ordinary person on the right course.
That I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed 1 million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I
you've
was
already
still in
done.
Parliament...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean with the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we're still waiting for.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans, right. You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well, wait a minute.
It didn't come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
It is molecularly.
Those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is not.
You can't get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are the one.
Time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible to result in SARS-CoV-2.
Those viruses caused the pandemic. We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it. And you admit the truth. And you implying...
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome, everybody, to Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris. On this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores, or they pile it on top with a big helping of propaganda, state-run propaganda, and we have to uncover it and bring you the truth, the best that we can find it anyway, on this show. Natali is off today. We've been dealing with this crazy flu that's been going through the house, so our 6-year-old who still has it ends up getting scarlet fever continuing like 103, 104, 105 degrees, all fluctuating. Rushed off to the hospital. So yes, scarlet fever now is the verdict. So we just found out about 5 minutes ago. So she's dealing with that, dealing with our 6-year-old with that. So you've got me. You've got Boys Club tonight on the show. So we've got a lot to get to on this Wednesday, and we did not scrimp on the news. So some questions about what happened about a month ago inside of Ukraine when a revenge strike led by Russia struck multiple targets inside Ukraine. Did it in fact take out major NATO targets, major NATO bunker targets, including top leadership of NATO at the time? Is that why you haven't heard anything about this story? Because NATO is essentially scared shitless, and this could be the end of everything that they've been trying to accomplish in Ukraine? We'll get to the bottom of this story. It's really crazy. It answers a lot of questions, specifically about these document leaks that we've been hearing about over the past few days. Also, devastating news for the U.S. dollar. Today, for the first time, we're getting word. We'll tell you who is the new kid on the block that now will outpace Western governments for economic growth compared to what the United States and Europe has been able to do. There's some new kids on the block, and what does this mean for the U.S. dollar going forward? Also, Turkey has some harsh words for the United States. We'll tell you what those look like, plus so much more as we look at Elon Musk and AI and the future of what that means for computer science and our ability to get direct and correct answers when we search the internet. Grover is pissed off. We've got a busy show. Redacted starts right now. Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well on this Wednesday. How's David? How's Philip holding up? How's the Boys Club doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm just ready for some sunshine. We're still getting rainy weather here. I've got people coming over tomorrow to try to fix my backyard. Still, it's like a swamp out there. So come on, sunshine.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest. You guys get sunshine for like what? Like a 2 weeks in August, and then it's back to nonstop rain.
Yeah, basically, it's like we have like amazing summers that last like 3 months, and then it's just cold, not really cold, but just cloudy and drizzles, and it's just like a constant misting for a good 9 months out of the year. So
everyone sits in front of those like those mood therapy lights, so you guys don't get all depressed.
Yeah. Everybody's like injecting vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Well, hope all of you guys are doing well tonight who are watching. Let us know where you're joining us from around the world. I'd love to hear from you, whether you're in Iceland, you're in Antarctica, you're in Finland, you're in Norway, you're in the United States. Let us know in the comments below. We have a daily newsletter, and I love hearing from you because you respond via email all the time to our daily newsletter. It goes out Monday through Friday, about 6:30, about 7 a.m. Eastern time when it hits your inbox, and it's totally free. It's informative. You can read it in about 5 to 10 minutes over your cup of coffee. We cover about 4 or 5 of the big news stories of the day, provide you some humor, little market updates, all of that. All you have to do is just put in your email address at redacted.inc, not .com. It's redacted.inc. redacted.inc. Put in your email address. You'll receive right now a welcome email. You can try it right now. You'll get an email from me, which is Clayton at redacted.inc. That's my email address. And then you just have to verify that email, okay? And then tomorrow morning at the normal time, you'll get the newsletter first thing in the morning, and you should be good to go. You should be all set up. So That's it. The newsletter is excellent, and we put a lot of hard work into it every day. We try to bring a lot of value for you and your family first thing in the morning. All right, let's get a beverage here because it's going to be a busy show. Man, a lot of news, a lot of craziness, a lot of you feel like, wow, can we enter into like a nice, maybe a quiet summer? I would hope. I'm hoping for like a quiet summer, but I don't think that's going to happen the way things are going.
Well, are there any wars left that we can start? I think we've started them all, right?
It's like we're shifting.
At least
we're trying
that to look forward to.
Oh yeah, we've got plenty of wars and we're ramping up in China. We're trying to dissolve what's happening in Ukraine right now, so we can move our resources out of there, so that the bankers can start to do what they want to do in Ukraine, get out of the way, and then we can start to move into China. That's our next plan. All right, let me ask you this question. Let's start here. So, did Russia just destroy a major NATO operations center in Ukraine? 300 people killed, along with dozens of high-ranking NATO officials, Ukrainian officials at the top levels. Was that story kept from you? Was it redacted? You weren't allowed to know about this story. We're going to show you the evidence in a moment, as well as why it's being kept silent from you. It'll all start to make sense. All of these pieces with these leaked Pentagon documents and all of these statements recently from Lloyd Austin and others and European leaders who are flying to China saying, we're not really interested in talking with the United States anymore about this. Can you broker peace, please? All of these pieces seem to be pointing to a similar answer in this, and there's a reason for all of this. But first, some context on this story. So March 2nd, let's rewind the clock a little over a month ago, U.S. and NATO launched a terror attack inside of Russia. I'm not sure if you remember this, using Ukrainian soldiers. Now, remember, I say everything that is carried out in Ukraine is because of NATO and the United States. It's not Ukraine. It's a proxy war. We're directing everything. Everything that happens, we are directing the traffic. They crossed the border into Mother Russia, into the Bryansk region, and they carried out terrorist attacks in a couple of village areas. There's a lot of gunfire. Reports initially were like, wow, there's like 50 Ukrainians. Turns out, no, it wasn't that many. It ended up being a lot less than that. But nevertheless, people were killed. Killing a person, injuring a 10-year-old boy, also firing drones. Drones were dropping incendiary devices on residential homes. So it was a residential attack. It had no military strategic importance whatsoever. The only thing it was designed to do was provoke Russia. Scott Ritter was on the show at the time. He said it was a clear provocation, he told our audience. Clear provocation. These guys were animals. It served no military purpose whatsoever. It was a terrorist attack. Again, against a 10-year-old boy, civilians. That's what this was. The whole goal was to provoke Russia. And then Putin declared it a terrorist attack. Russia declared it a terrorist attack, said, game over, we will respond. And then he made it in a devastating way, a devastating response to this attack. A few days later, on March 8th and 9th, Putin responded, launching for the very first time hypersonic missiles. 6 of them, to be exact. These are the Kinzhal missiles, known as the daggers. President Biden described them as, quote, a consequent weapon that is almost impossible to stop. Ukraine admits they have nothing that can stop these Russian hypersonic missiles. Nothing. In fact, the United States even test launched their own hypersonic missile a month ago, and it failed off Hawaii. Disaster. So Scott Ritter was on our show that day to talk about this attack and how devastating these Kinzhal attacks were. Watch.
The Russians are coming in with very innovative tactics designed to force the Ukrainians to activate their radars so that the radars can be identified and destroyed, force the Ukrainians to fire their specific missiles, especially from high-value resources like the IRIS-T or the NASAMS. Now the Patriot system is in Ukraine, allegedly. And then for the Russians then to target these and to denigrate, to degrade, to neutralize the Ukrainian air defense so that they can impose their will on this space. And last night we saw the Russians begin to impose their will. They struck repeatedly. They struck targets of high value, and they started using in large numbers the Kinzhal missile. Before, the Kinzhal was a one of. They fire one here, one there, because it's a very expensive missile, and the Russians didn't have a lot of them. But the Russians have been producing Kinzhals. They're running triple shifts at the facilities to produce these things. And I think we're seeing these missiles starting to come out in quantities so that the Russians can integrate them. And the important thing about the Kinzhal is no matter what NATO and Ukrainians do, you can't shoot it down. The missile cannot be shot down. So it can be used, for instance, to strike any target at once. And now notice there were 81 launches. 6 were Kinzhal. So the Kinzhal is still a small portion of the overall, less than 10% of the overall strike force. But the targets it's hit are guaranteed to be destroyed. So it can hit command and control targets. It can hit critical energy infrastructure that might otherwise be protected with air defense resources that would negate, a Caliber attack or a Shahed 136 attack or an Iskander attack. Well, you can't negate the Kinzhal. It hits, it destroys, that's it. It can also start taking out the high-value air defense systems themselves. If you can identify a German Iris-T or an American Patriot system or a NASAM system, take it out with the Kinzhal. Bam, that's worth the expenditure. And I think you're going to see General Surovikin continue to shape this battle, allure the Ukrainians into activating radars to be destroyed, firing systems to be identified, and bringing to bear the hypersonic Kinzhal when needed to eliminate high-value targets. This is the beginning of the air campaign, which is designed to collapse Ukraine as a modern nation state, and in doing so, collapse political support for the Zelensky government.
So what we didn't know at the time was what specific targets were struck. And Russia then, here's the payload. You can see it in the graphic here, what this looks like. And then Russia finally admitted to destroying NATO's deep underground command bunker in Kiev a few days after these attacks. They admitted to this. But what was in this command bunker? NATO was quiet about it. The United States has been absolutely silent about this Western bunker near the capital of Ukraine that was totally destroyed. Have you heard about it? Has CNN covered it? Has Fox News covered it? Has any major media outlet covered it? Has the BBC covered it? Where has this story been? Who was killed there? Has Ukraine talked about it? No, but that very day, you can piece the evidence together and see interviews with Zelensky that afternoon where he looks like he was a beaten dog, like he just literally had his stomach punched and was slapped in the head because something big had just happened. And arguably, he was supposed to have been there during that time when this bunker busting bomb unfolded. So what exactly happened? Well, reports started to trickle out from sources that I trust and independent media sources that one of these 6 Kinzhal missiles struck a secret bunker in western Ukraine near the capital. It was devastating. And then again, I said, Zelensky shows up on TV, looks like a beaten down dog because he just lost hundreds of his top leadership members. Hundreds of them. Russia struck a bunker that was 400 feet below ground. 400 feet below ground, and destroyed it. According to reports, 300 people, among them dozens of top NATO officials, not from Ukraine, from NATO, were also there and killed at the time. But oddly, this story has been redacted by the mainstream media. No mention of it, totally ignored. Again, I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't seen it printed. I scoured newspapers all day today, tried to find nothing. Who was killed there? What NATO members were killed? No mention of it. And they were killed by these Kinzhal missiles after that terrorist attack was launched in Bryansk. So why are we not getting the answers on this? They can't respond. They can't respond to this. The reason they can't respond to this, you guys can answer this in the chat below if you'd like and give your thoughts on this. The reason they can't respond, in my theory, is because to respond in any kind of meaningful, forceful way is an elevation to World War III, a nuclear response. You cannot stop these missiles. So what response do you have other than to leave, looking for a way out of this war? They are done. This is all signs pointing to NATO is finished as an organization. As Douglas McGregor has said on our show before, this is the beginning of the death spiral now for NATO. Independent journalists.
Well, and also
go ahead.
I was just going to say it then prompts an actual response from the United States. It's like right now, they just want to send money over there. The goal is not to take on Russia. The goal is to do whatever with this digital stuff they're doing in Ukraine. It's a money laundering thing. They don't actually want to go to war with Russia. But if they say that Russia just destroyed something in Ukraine and killed a bunch of people, well, that's going to get even the people thinking, well, then maybe we should attack Russia.
Yeah.
And it's not actually what they want.
Right, exactly. I mean, I know it's hard to believe maybe at this point, but there's still a lot of people who are brainwashed into thinking that we just need to throw whatever we have and go after Russia, right? There are plenty of people that watch CNN and MSNBC and are totally brainwashed out there. The fact that we do this show and we have an audience of anti-war people who watch this show who understand that this is absolute insanity, what is taking place right there. There's millions still who are just brainwashed and flip on the news and like, yeah, Putin bad, we should go to war with him. Let's launch a nuclear strike. To know that Vladimir Putin literally just took out some of the top commanders in NATO and other almost the entire top brass inside of Ukraine in this attack. They're going to go after him, launch whatever you've got. And U.S. members of Congress, who of course even before this wanted to launch nuclear strikes against Putin, would be emboldened to want to do this too. So you're absolutely right about that. I think that's exactly the reason why this has been totally kept out of the New York Times. Why has the New York Times not mentioned a word of this? They're being told not to. It's the only reason. They're being told not to talk about it, not to publicize this, not to tell you about what just happened. Independent journalist, military analyst Gilbert Doctorow was on television yesterday explaining about this, and it was amazing. And he was explaining why you don't read this in the New York Times. It's being suppressed from you. Watch it as they try to get some answers from him on this television interview. And then as he starts to talk about it, watch as they sort of rush him off the air. Like, sorry, we're out of time. We got to go. We can't listen anymore to that. We're out of time. We're out of time. You're telling the truth here. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. Watch this amazing moment.
Business news are going to be kept quiet.
I'm sorry, I was trying to Google what you said was the news, which I didn't hear about. What is that news before I let you go?
After the Ukrainians staged a sabotage mission in Bryansk Oblast, part of the Russian Federation, in which several people were killed, the Russians staged a revenge attack with using, for the first time, 6 of their hypersonic missiles, which are called Kinzhal. One of those struck near Lvov, or Lviv, that is the western capital of Ukraine. And this conventionally armed missile, because of the laws of physics, that is taking mass and velocity, give you enormous impact which enabled that rocket to descend and destroy a deeply built concrete bunker where 300 top Western and Ukrainian officers have been managing the communications on behalf of NATO in Ukraine. The Russians, again, yesterday announced very discreetly that 200 of those people killed were generals and high NATO officers. Did you read about that in the New York Times? No, you didn't.
All right, very well.
If it were in the New York Times, it would lead to enormous uproar in the States and would take us towards escalation of nuclear exchange.
Sure.
The Americans don't want that. The Russians don't want that.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to definitely follow through with that. Gilbert Doctorow, independent international affairs analyst. Don DeBar, thank you, activist and commentator from Austin, New York. With that, we come to an end for this edition of the News Review. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, everyone. And good for him.
And I have another question.
Good for them for having him on, by the way. But go ahead.
I was going to say, is it also common practice for NATO officers to be in a non-NATO, in a war zone of a non-NATO country? Like, is that common? Because it's like, if they're not NATO, then they shouldn't be there.
No, exactly. No, And you had the Washington Post admitting over the past 48 hours or so that this is a proxy war. I mean, the Washington Post now admitting, after they released these documents, the document leaks and out the guy, they now admit that this is a proxy war. Like, this is the first time. We're getting full admission now of the charade, like the jig is up. Jimmy in our chat says, Jimmy Butler says, funny and strange that you would say that you looked for some information on an attack, but nowhere you found anything about it, then you tell us about it. No, I have sources on this. And I'm saying, what I was saying is looking in the mainstream media to find any coverage of this where any of that, you can't find it. You won't find it. That's my point. And what Gilbert just pointed out, read about that in the New York Times, you will not find it in the mainstream media. You have to find alternative media sources and, of course, independent journalists who cover these stories and have access to information that is not suppressed by the corporate media. That's the point. So here you go. Will we hear more about this? Probably not, but we are starting to see the pieces in place. These Pentagon documents pointing to Ukraine as a total lost cause, a desolate wasteland which will collapse, which it is right now. NATO is looking for an exit strategy. You see Emmanuel Macron today, once again, pointing out, looking for a peace agreement, need a peace agreement, and we cannot look to the United States for this, pushing on China to do this. There is groundswell support right now for this to end. Perhaps even more than any of that are the bankers that want their money to be deployed into reconstruction and efforts. So they want to make the money now in these efforts, and they will. And they don't care really who, when this, they want those people like cleaned out of there so we can start to funnel money into any of this infrastructure projects. So that's where this is going to start to move. And of course, all focus will then shift fully to China. That is an amazing piece of this story that I wanted to bring to you tonight that you're just not going to hear about in the mainstream media or frankly anywhere else. We've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. We're going to look at what the BRICS nations were just uncovered and what this means for their economic growth. We're going to look at how the BRICS nations compared to the United States and other G7 countries are doing economically. It's going to be astonishing to look at these numbers, these new numbers out from Bloomberg today. We're also going to look at what Turkey just said about the United States in an interview, and maybe said the quiet part out loud. A lot of people like sort of secretly applauding what he just said. Others are like, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that about the United States. Did he really? Did he really just say that? And Elon Musk speaking out about AI and the dangers of AI, but Bill Gates is saying, hey, don't listen to Elon Musk. AI is great. So it's like the battle of the Elon Musk versus Bill Gates. We'll get to that. Plus, the United States is now compensating people for vaccine injuries. A check coming in the mail. We'll tell you about that story a little bit later. And you'll have to be added to a list and the whole thing. It's unbelievable what the United States is now admitting with all of that. We'll get to all of that. But first, well, the United States just released new economic data showing lower than expected inflation numbers. As a result, U.S. stock futures rose sharply. U.S. bond yields fell as market expectations for continued tightening by the Federal Reserve have now cooled off. And the Fed futures markets are looking at interest rate cuts coming this summer. That could be good for the housing market, but it could be bad, of course, for a broader recession. So the Fed is getting us ready for a recession. But the stock market doesn't seem to mind. The Dow futures, the NASDAQ futures jumped on this news, but at the same time, gold is nearing an all-time high. So all of these things are hard to keep track of. And that's why I often use the Moomoo app or the Moomoo app on my Mac for great economic information, because Moomoo offers 24/7 global financial news to help you stay on top of the market trends, grab the changes quickly. So I see these every morning when I go over my portfolio. Right there, I can read the Fed policy. I can see the related reports immediately right inside the Moomoo app. Also, they have a Moomoo community with over 19 million people from 200 countries sharing their investment experience, which is really interesting to read. Right now, you can get up to 15 free stocks just for opening an account with Moomoo and making your initial deposit. Moomoo is a safe and reliable platform. The overseas version, called Futsu, has been listed on NASDAQ in the United States for a long time. With 19 million registered users, Moomoo can also trade U.S. stocks, Hong Kong stocks, and Australian stocks. And speaking of Australia, guess what? We're talking about international trading. If you're an Australian viewer right now, our Australian viewers get 10 free stocks valued up to 3,100 Australian dollars. If you deposit any amount, you get up to 3 free stocks. And then if you deposit 2,000 Australian dollars, you get an extra 7 free stocks. It's one of my favorite trading apps where I set my alerts about my commodity stocks that I like to trade. They also have earnings seasons calendars built right in, so you can see these different companies' earnings and a ton of related research reports. They're useful, especially when you decide to start investing in a company. Besides, if you want to learn how to invest, there are more than 2,000 free investing courses on the Moomoo platform. You can customize your study plans as well. And the app also offers more investment insights like institution tracking. You can see what famous financial institutions are investing in. You want to follow a big hedge fund? You can do that right inside the app. Try it today and get 15 free stocks when you download the app and make your initial deposits. Go to redacted.inc/Moomoo. Again, redacted.inc/Moomoo. Try it today. So if you're just joining us, you've got the boys club tonight on the show. Natalie's out because of our sick 6-year-old with scarlet fever. It's like, what the hell is scarlet fever? You know, you hear about this stuff.
That's related to strep. Isn't that a strep?
Yeah, the strep came back negative, but then like the rash after the fever, it's like 104, 105 degree temperature, and like the only way to keep it down is with like some Tylenol, and it's just crazy. It's crazy. So yeah. Anyway, viral, then maybe turn to bacterial. It's just a nightmare.
Sorry, yeah, I said strep virus, but the strep isn't a virus; it's a bacteria. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was negative, but then I don't know. Who knows? You read about that, like, you know, scarlet fever, and you think, God, that's like something out of Oregon Trail. You know, like that's like something you read in, I don't know. That's what I like picture. Scurvy, or what were the other things on Oregon Trail that you always used to get? I don't know if you remember.
Dysentery.
Dysentery.
That was the big one. Yeah. Died of dysentery.
Ticks.
Yeah.
Speaking of scurvy, I was like, couple days ago, I was like, you know, I don't remember the last time I ate fruit. And so I had to, like, last night I went and bought a big bag of oranges and just like ate like 5 or 6 oranges last night because I was like, I'm going to end up getting scurvy because I just don't eat enough fruit. And it was just funny. Just like one day I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, I might be working on scurvy.
Scurvy.
So that's just, you know.
It is amazing that all it took was like just oranges on a ship or lemons to make sure that people didn't get scurvy. Yeah, do that. I guess if you live in the Pacific Northwest and you don't see sunshine very often, make sure you have your bag of oranges and a bag of vitamin D. So, you know, on this show, try to give you this news so that you understand and can make informed decisions and for your family. You know, do you see what these globalists are doing? You're able to read between the lines when you see these news stories, these big news stories popping up in the press. So our goal is to empower you on this show, you know, and you at least be able to be aware of the propaganda that's being foisted upon you. So when you spend that quality time with your family, you're saving, you're putting your money in the right places, you're protecting yourself from these globalists. That's the goal of this show, empowerment, so that you're informed and you're empowered, and that you can live a better life with your family. Your kids are more informed. They're not duped by the system. That's the goal. That's the goal. So today we learned that the BRICS nations, led by Russia, Brazil, China, India, South Africa, will, in this calendar year, 2023, surpass the G7 nations for economic growth. Now, do with that what you want. You can be positive or negative about it. You can think that's the doom and gloom, worst news in the world, or you can say that, well, there's positive news here, especially if maybe I'm a smart investor, or figure things out for my family, where to invest or put my money in the future, and what horses do I want to get behind for the future? So this is according to Bloomberg today. According to Bloomberg, based on the latest IMF data, the BRICS countries will contribute 32.1% of the world's growth, compared to the G7's 29%. This is astonishing when you think about the amount. Russia is the most sanctioned country in world history right now. They're managing, along with Brazil, China, also under intense Western pressure, to surpass Western governments, the United States, U.S. dollar, for global output and economic growth. It's astonishing. And Brazil as well, South Africa, India, which today was announced is now the world's most populous nation, beating China. You see where the goal or the puck is going to, don't you? Like where things are headed. And I cannot understand this. I mean, if people don't understand like what world shifting moment we're in right now, like you'll be able to tell your kids you were alive during 2023 when you saw these things shifting. This is a teachable moment for our kids, our families, to be able to literally watch Western hegemony start to decline and the rise of this new world order, this multipolar order, rather than being driven by just what the U.S. dictates and how things will go in the future. It's pretty remarkable to see this in the share of economic growth. Let's just take a closer look at this Bloomberg piece. And according to the Group of Seven Nations, so the U.S., UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan has long been considered the most advanced economic bloc of countries on the planet. Russia was a member, of course, until 2014, when it was expelled due to the fallout from the Western-backed Maidan coup in Ukraine. The report indicated that in 2020, the contributions from BRICS countries and the G7 to global economic growth were equal. Since then, the performance of the Western-led bloc has been declining. By 2028, the G7's contribution to the world economy is predicted to decrease to 27.8%, while BRICS will account for 35%. In total, 75% of global growth is expected to be concentrated in 20 countries, over half in the top four: China, India, the United States, and Indonesia. While the group of 7 countries will comprise a smaller share: Germany, Japan, United States, United Kingdom, France, among the top 10 contributors. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that no more than a dozen nations have expressed interest in joining BRICS. We've already talked about Mexico. Mexico wants to join. Can you imagine what a slap in the face that is to the United States? It's like
would we still be in charge of their energy policy if they do that?
I don't know. We are right now
at that point.
Yeah, we love to tell them. I wonder, seriously, given NAFTA, right? What does that mean if they join BRICS? What does that mean for NAFTA if they join BRICS? I mean, we already are there heavily meddling in what they do with their energy policy right now. So I don't know. Argentina.
I mean, does that give us de facto, like if through NAFTA, if Mexico joins BRICS, that should give us de facto influence over Russia then, right?
Right, because I guess so.
Did they become part of the NAFTA? That means everybody joins NAFTA. Hooray.
Yeah, so then Russia becomes part of NAFTA. Saudi Arabia wants to become a member. You imagine Saudi Arabia in BRICS. Already the oil outflows to China, the oil contracts increasing tremendously, and away from the United States. Again, guys, the writing is on the wall here. This is not to scare you, it's to prepare you. Especially if you're in the West. And you see, like, if you've got your family's currency, you've got your family's future tied to the euro or the US dollar as like where you put and bet on your family's future, think differently about it. And just think differently about what this means for global power, global hegemony. Think differently, too, about, you know, how your family travels or what sort of protections you have in place. You know, everyone's like, I just want to get a U.S. passport. Well, think in sort of like terms of like Andrew Henderson writes and talks about a nomad capitalist, like thinking about having like, go where you're treated best, right? As a human, go where you're treated best and maybe having access to multiple ports of call, access to multiple citizenships. Where does business investment make the most sense for you? You know, it's a big world out there. And guess what? The United States is not the be all end all. So think differently about things. when it comes to these things. Also, another big story, if I can get my notes up here. The Bank of England says that cash will now become less usable, and get ready for a cashless society. So the Bank of England, the BOE, now saying that the cash will become less usable, and we're going to be moving towards a cashless society, says the Bank of England. Cash is to become less usable as shoppers embrace the internet and high street stores increasingly reject banknotes. So these stores are now saying we're done with banknotes. We're done with coins. We really just want to deal with just go cashless. Sir John Cunliffe says that it will become harder to spend physical money in coming years owing to the rise of online shopping and contactless payments. So, and maybe the way to go away from this, I've heard a number of people saying, is to let's all stop online shopping. Could you do that? Could you live without online shopping? Just tell me in the chat, honestly. If they said, okay, tomorrow, Amazon, no more Amazon. Do not use Amazon anymore. Boycott Amazon. Like, how many of you already boycott Amazon? Let me know in the chat. And you see it expanding now into the Middle East, Amazon. Like it just popped up now, just now rolled out in Egypt. So now there's Amazon.eg, I think. If that's anyway. So yeah, now there's Amazon Egypt. Like, it's coming everywhere. Driving stores out of business. Could you live without it? A lot of people here in the chat saying yes, 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 but then a lot of people saying no, no, no. No, I couldn't. Other people saying no, I could. Never shop there. Yeah.
Yeah, Philip, it'd be a challenge for me.
Yeah, it would be a challenge for a lot of people, right?
But I know I could. I mean, I did it for a long time. I mean, there's still, we really should be shopping at places like Best Buy and stuff like that to kind of split that, offset that. But so we could, it would just be hard because they deliver everything. They deliver prescriptions now, food, my dog food, my heartworm medicine comes from there now.
Yeah, well, and
my dog's.
This is the convenience factor, right? So it's contactless. Mm-hmm. You don't ever have to see the cash change hands at all, right? It's part of a digital account. It's not like you're counting out ones, so like the delivery man shows up at your door. Like it used to be back in the day when the milkman would come to your door, you'd pay him in dollars, right? Cash.
Well, and you could ship stuff COD. Remember that?
Yeah. I remember I had a paper route growing up, and I had to go around and get my, monthly or whatever. I had to go and get my payments for it. So I had to go around and knock on the doors and hope that people were home. A lot of times they weren't. I think I would go on a Saturday, and I had to keep going and keep going and keep going because not everyone was home. And I'd have to say, "Hey, you're a paper boy. I'm here to get my collection," and they'd pay me in cash for it. So it was like a cash. Very often it was cash business for the whole setup. It's like, it's crazy how different it is now. They sign up online with their subscription. There's none of that. So he says cash is likely to decline further. Cash itself will become less usable in everyday transactions. For example, if the internet commerce grows and if merchants increasingly accept only digital payments, yeah, it's going to continue. Card payments took over cash as the most dominant form of payment for retail back in 2016. It's hard to believe it was even that long. It took that long until 2016. By 2021, 85% of payments are now made electronically. That's 2021. I have to imagine almost all of these payments are going to be, like 99% of them will be there very, very soon. So cash is disappearing, and very concerning for what this means for people who want to have tangible assets like gold, silver, things to be able to protect their families. Taking out large amounts of cash in order to have on hand for transactions. I'm a big advocate of this, but the problem is if people won't accept cash, what are you going to do? To me, it almost sounds illegal. What do you mean you can't accept the currency of your country? You're a business. What are you talking about? I want to buy your thing You're not accepting the currency of the country where you would pay taxes? I don't understand that. How is that possible? Don't you have to, under the law, accept a form of legal tender that is provided by the government? You can only accept digital versions of that now? It's insane. But we knew this was coming. Let us know your thoughts on this in the chat below. I find this astonishing. We got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. Let's talk about this. Turkey. So these are some amazing words by the Turkish Interior Minister, Süleyman Soylu, who out with a new statement in a television interview. And this is sending shockwaves right now through the international diplomatic circles and how to handle this right now. The Turkish minister Süleyman claims the whole world, not just the world, the whole world hates America, he says in this interview. So I'm going to go through this BNN interview from the BNN network. It's a pretty bold statement. Like he's not pulling back at all. The whole world hates the United States. A lot of people are like, thank you for saying the obvious. Thank you for saying the truth, the thing that most people realize and won't say out loud. Others are saying, how dare you? How dare you? So Turkish Interior Minister has claimed the whole world hates America and suggests that Europe is merely a pawn of the United States. Okay. So let's get a little deeper. He downplayed Europe's significance, saying that the trend is in America's favor. So the idea that America wants Europe to be in decline is totally in America, that America wants Europe to be in decline is totally in America's favor, like the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. A lot of people in the chat saying, yep, but he's right. It's true. Absolutely. He's right. He's 100% correct. Yes. And you have to wonder, like when we were just in the Middle East, like people were very, very kind to us, but they became incredibly, I cannot tell you the change in their facial expression when they found out, oh, we're American. Like, oh, American. Okay. And we would say, but we live in, we now live in Portugal. Oh, Portugal. Like, we love like it was unbelievable. Like the transition from like there's an awareness that, oh, but you got out of America. Like you left because you know it's corrupt and criminal and you left and you made a decision to whatever. Like there's like this shift in that. And that's not why we decided. We just wanted a better life for our children. And we just, I'd lived there most of my life and enough was enough. And I don't have a 9-to-5 job anymore. And I wanted to see the world. So it wasn't like that. And most of the, governments around the world have a problem, right? It's not like there's like a rose bush over here and all these other ones are cactus, So they all have issues, right? Let's be honest. But it's amazing to see this sort of like they're absolutely aware of, and they're sort of playing to our, oh, we're just gonna be nice. It's the Americans. They want to come here and see these things. That's nice. But then when they realize we're journalists, they would look back and like, oh, so you might understand then what we're going through. And when we ask them, hey, were you here in the square, in the Tahrir Square right over here for the Arab Spring? And they said, no. And when we would say to them, oh, because you realize it's a Western-backed coup attempt, right? It's a Western. Yes, exactly. No, we don't want U.S. in meddling in what we do and how we live our lives. That's exactly why we weren't here in Tahrir Square, like supporting the Arab Spring and doing. So you realize like the American meddling is far and wide. There's a deep awareness about the hatred of America around the world. Sure, they love American culture and they love Hollywood and love those sorts of things, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about American imperialism and American government and American military. That's what he's talking about here. He says, United States is losing its credibility on the global stage. Is that the case? What do you guys think? Is America losing its credibility on the world stage? This is what the Turkish Interior Minister says. And he says it's attributed to various factors such as foreign policy decisions, economic policies, and perceived cultural dominance. Perceived cultural dominance. This is also interesting, right? America has this perception that it is culturally dominant, that like what America produces in terms of music and entertainment, etc., is culturally dominant. Would you guys say that that's the perception? You guys didn't think that's the case, that America perceives its exports of this stuff as the best of the best?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if there's no such, he says there's no such thing as Europe. There is America. Europe is a trend in the Americas column. Ouch.
I mean, think about our biggest export, democracy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we love, yeah.
And think about how we ship it.
We box it up in some missiles. Yeah. Box it up in some missiles, and we'll ship it right into your residential zones.
Yep. Sorry, no return to sender, or that's even worse.
Just see how we spread democracy across Ukraine, right? Go ahead, Philip.
As he points out, it's like you were asking, like, has America lost its credibility? I mean, the credibility that they're really referring to is our directly post World War II credibility. Like post World War II, we had it going on, like throughout World War II, and then immediately after that, the Cold War begins, and that's when we just completely undermined our any credibility we had, in my opinion. If you look at like everything we did, like getting into Vietnam, all of the things we did after that. And it's just like, I think that's where our credibility really started to fall, was like in the 50s. So it's like, how long can we still ride that wave of World War II America?
Right. We needed to create an enemy. So we set about an opportunity to crush Europe. Britain is no longer a world superpower as a result. We are now the ones calling the shots. We are going to make the most money. We've
built 900 bases around the world.
Right.
So we are occupying.
Yeah, we're going to satiate the military-industrial complex, right? And we're going to do this by spreading democracy around the world. We cannot possibly partner up and team up with the Soviet Union, which lost, 23 million people or 30 million people fighting in World War II in order to beat the Nazis. We can't partner up with them and figure out a way to work collectively. No, they have to be the enemy. They cannot join NATO. They cannot join our power alliance, even though they literally helped destroy the Nazis. We can't have them. So then we have this hegemony for 60, 70 years, and now it's in decline. And it will peter out. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take probably a couple decades or whatever for it to totally peter out. But you're seeing the global power shift happening now. Turkish Interior Minister's comments may have far-reaching implications, BNN says, for international relations, particularly among Turkey and the United States and Europe. Such strong anti-American rhetoric could contribute to increased tensions between the countries. It may negatively impact diplomatic relations. Furthermore, dismissal of Europe's significance could strain Turkey's relationships with European nations, potentially affecting trade and cooperation in various areas. So there's already, of course, massive strain in that regard. But what's amazing is that Emmanuel Macron is basically saying the same thing, but just in a little bit more diplomatic language. Emmanuel Macron goes to China and admits that the United States has been basically pushing Europe into a hole. And we can't allow the United States to lead us in Europe anymore. We can't be involved in these skirmishes that the United States wants us involved in. It's leading to European collapse. He's telling the truth. If a bit too late, wouldn't it have been nice a while ago for you to have been that outspoken about this? Instead, now waiting to this point to make these comments. So does the Turkish Interior Minister have a point? The whole world hates America. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comment below. And I would love to hear from our friends from Turkey on this story. What do you think about these comments from your Interior Minister about the United States? In the comments below. Yeah, go ahead.
Now I want to specifically know what Turkey thinks about me specifically. Do they hate me, or is it just the government?
Do you also like Philip, or does the whole world hate Philip? Yeah, and do you hate me as well? Does the whole world? Because I'm American, so. But I think it's specifically talking about American imperialism and the American government. I think you're okay. But I have to admit, I bet the Kardashians are probably on that list. I would have to think I would at least hope that Kardashians made his list of awful things. We've got more news to get to. We're going to look at Elon Musk. What Elon Musk has to say about Elon Musk has to say about AI, artificial intelligence, versus Bill Gates. Big sit-down interview with Tucker Carlson, and a lot of questions emerging, and Bill Gates firing back at some of this stuff over the destruction and how this could lead to the destruction of all humanity is artificial intelligence. We're going to dive deep into how all of this works and what he has to say about it. And then over on Rumble, we're going to be heading over there a little bit later because we're going to be talking about how the United States is compensating people, Americans now, for people who've been injured when they got that shot that everyone was told to get. Turns out the United States government saying, hey, if you've been injured as a result of that, well, guess what? We'll send you a check. What? Yeah, we'll get to that story. You have to be on a list and get out your pad and paper because we're going to show you what this looks like and how many people have been added to this list, and the checks have started going out. It's like
that's gonna be a tight NDA.
It's like a vaccine stimulus check. Think how many millions of people are going to be getting access to this check. So we'll do that story in just a few moments. But first,
I don't hear audio on that, Philip.
Sorry. It is no secret. I mean, we've just gone through what's going on with the U.S. dollar, and we've been telling you about what's happening with the recession that's incoming right now, and really big concerns. I saw today there are concerns. Wow, we could be headed for like what's known as a forever recession. That's something we've never had in the U.S. We've had a Great Depression, but we've never had a forever recession. I didn't like seeing that story today. And what does that mean for your family's finances if it's tied to the U.S. dollar? All I'm saying, I've been saying this for years on this show. Please, please, please do not have your family's future in some sort of a U.S. bank savings account, where every day that your dollar that sits in that savings account loses value every day because the U.S. dollar continues to lose value every day. It's that simple. It's like why you don't pay the same amount for a Big Mac like you did in the 1980s. The Big Mac is the same. The dollar is not. That's the bottom line, right? So now you're paying more for not even the same, you're paying more for less. And that is what's happened to the US dollar. Our friends at Lear Capital can help you get set up with a gold-backed IRA. That's right. If you are interested in actually purchasing gold and silver, you can do that inside of a self-directed account that you control, totally control. I did a webinar earlier today and specifically talking about how powerful self-directed IRAs are, unbelievably powerful. And you probably never even heard of a self-directed IRA because the government doesn't even want you to know they exist. So the IRA that you think you know is a self-directed IRA, it's not. There's a few custodians out there to allow you to set them up, and then you control it, not Wall Street. So Lear Capital will help you get set up with it, and then you can buy whatever you want inside of it. You can buy gold, you can buy silver, you can buy real estate, and then let that grow tax-free. So upon retirement, you don't pay any taxes on the growth. They do not want you to know about this. That's why when you call Fidelity and they're like, hey, do you have a self-directed IRA? They're like, well, we control it. No, that's not what I'm asking, Fidelity. Do you have a self-directed? No, we don't. Sorry. Because they don't want you to know about it. So if you want to figure this out, call Lear Capital today. 1-800-613-3557. Or go to LearRedacted.com. And you can get their gold and silver investor guide, and they'll help you get set up with a a self-directed IRA account. Very, very simple to do. And then you can buy gold coins, silver inside of that account. And you'll receive up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with qualified purchases when you set up your account. So just check them out. Give them a call and see if it's a fit for you. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I'm a huge investor in gold and silver. 1-800-613-3557. Again, 1-800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com. That's the place to go. Exactly. So thank you for them. So Capitalism Evil Chad left us a super chat, says, but are you willing to risk your current inflating net worth with an asset that rises and falls day to day and in market crashes also falls? I don't quite know what you mean exactly there, but if you're talking about having your money in a 401k with the stock market, absolutely not. I think the 401k is one of the worst things to ever happen to the American people in history financially. It's a scam, absolute scam. Even the creator of the 401k admits it, that it was never meant to stand on its own as an investment vehicle for families. It was meant to work in tandem with pensions, and pensions have disappeared. Even then, it was only meant as like a supplement to help families. Even then, when it was paired with pensions, it's not meant to stand on its own. And now all you do when you start up with a business, you start with someplace, they're like, hey, you want a 401k plan? We'll set it up for you. Don't even worry about it. Yeah, because Wall Street makes money and the company makes money because they're investing in the match program or whatever they're going to do and in the company's own stocks. It's a scam. So they're investing in Wall Street. Wall Street makes money off of you. So yeah, absolutely. You want your family's future tied to that? Absolutely not. Now, if your family's entire future is tied to gold, well, that's also not a smart move, right? I don't think that that's a smart move. I also don't think having your family's future tied to goat farms is, a smart move. You should always have a diversified. So we have a good chunk of our family's wealth tied to gold and silver and precious metals, but I do that for wealth preservation, not for, it's right now it's near $2,000 an ounce, right? Great. If it goes up to $2,100 an ounce, great. I've made some good appreciation. That's wonderful profit, but I'm not cashing it out. And if it goes down to $1,700 an ounce, that's fine too. I'm not cashing it out. It's lost some value, but it's also not the US dollar, right? It's still tied to, it's still an asset. It's still a real thing. The US dollar is not a real thing. It's not backed by anything. It's backed by debt. It's backed by nothing, the US dollar. And when people just get that through their head and understand that, it's like real estate. I invest in real estate because it's a real thing. So maybe it goes up in value $15,000, $20,000. I don't care. I'm not selling the house. I'm keeping it for forever. I don't care how much it goes up and how much it goes down because the cash flow and the tax benefits of that asset blow away anything else you could possibly invest in anywhere on the world. Nothing even comes close. It's not the US dollar. It's an actual tangible structure on land that I get the tax benefits for. See, this is the difference from that and investing in having your family's future tied to a 401k. There's the difference. Hope that makes sense. All right. So let's talk about some other big news. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. So is Bill Gates versus Elon Musk in the race towards the singularity? Here's a word we haven't heard of in a while. Last month, we told you about Bill Gates and his happy-go-lucky warning that AI could be dangerous, but he said we should do it anyway because of poor people. Like it'll help poor people. He said it may not reach poor people, but we should do it anyway, probably because it'll be good for rich people. Okay. That's Bill Gates. Elon Musk does not feel that way. He thinks that AI is a threat to our actual existence. He said so this week to Tucker Carlson in a big sit-down interview, which is unbelievable to watch. A lot of really big takeaways. We have a few of them here I wanted to kind of catalog and go through. So here's what he had to say about AI as a threat to our existence. Watch.
Difficult to predict what will happen in that circumstance. It's called the singularity. It's a singularity like a black hole because you don't know what happens after that. It's hard to predict. So I think we should be cautious with AI, and I think there should be some government oversight because it affects it's a danger to the public.
So the singularity, like what happens when it becomes fully, it takes over and there's no going back. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle. And the singularity that he refers to is a point in the future when you cannot control it. It cannot be controlled by humans anymore. I mean, think Terminator, right? It's funny. It all seems like it's just all feels like it's just science fiction, but no, it's happening. It's here. And it starts to dictate what we humans can do instead of what humans dictate we do with our lives, what technology tells us to do. Bill Gates warned us about this in a letter about AI, but then sort of brushed it off like it's, don't worry about it. So Bill Gates also had this awareness, but of course he makes a ton of money off of it. See, there's the difference. So here's what he said about this on ChatGPT. He said, could a machine decide that humans are a threat? Conclude that its interests are different from ours, or simply stop caring about us? Possibly, but this problem is no more urgent today than it was before AI developments of the past few months. Okay. That's always been a concern. Musk points out that the rate of development is exactly why it's more of a concern now than it was all along. Because it feels like to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like in the past 6 months, suddenly we went from no one talking about AI to everyone talking about it. Everyone. It's like all I hear now. Musk thinks that there is a government regulation needed, even though he thinks regulation is a drudgery. Think about that. He's one of the most regulated entrepreneurs in the world. He deals with government telling him how to make cars, launch rockets, drill holes, now communicate through Twitter, all of that. And even he still thinks it's worth it because of the dangers of artificial intelligence, which he explains like this. Listen.
Really, AI is perhaps more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction. There's movies like Terminator, but it wouldn't quite happen like Terminator because the intelligence would be in the data centers.
Right.
The robot's just the end effector. But I think perhaps what you may be alluding to here is that regulations are really only put into effect after something terrible has happened.
That's correct.
If that's the case for AI, and we only put in regulations after something terrible has happened, it may be too late to actually put the regulations in place. The AI may be in control at that point.
I mean, I hope people are paying attention. That just gave me chills.
Thanks, Skynet.
Yeah. It is Skynet, right? Think of any other movies that have warned us about this, right? The Matrix. Can you guys think of any other ones like Blade Runner? What other AI movies out there? You guys name it. Tell me in the chat. Like, are there any, think about that?
Yeah, where everything coming to mind.
Everything takes over. Everything.
I know they exist.
Yeah.
iRobot.
iRobot. Yeah, I don't know if was that. I forget.
No, that wasn't AI taking over. That was just robots existed
and becoming sentient.
Yeah, but they didn't run things. They didn't take over. But I guess there was kind of the central computer did sort of take over. So yeah, I guess that can still apply.
And Tron.
I'll allow it.
Tron, yeah, yeah. 2001 was 2000. What was
Grimm said Ex Machina.
Ex Machina, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Well, and also in this interview, I found this part stunning. He said that Google founder Larry Page actually wanted Google to do this, meaning that Google may actually have been designed to be moving us in this direction in the first place. That was the purpose of Google. Their tagline back in the day was "Do no evil," and yet listen to Elon.
Larry Page and I used to be close friends, and I would
Yes.
stay at his house in Palo Alto, and I would talk to him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be wants sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will, as soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence. No, and I agree with him that there's great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take the set of actions that maximize the probability that it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
In fact, Google is right now actually struggling to keep up with ChatGPT. The open source, I think, is it open source?
Well, it's pretty much Microsoft's now. It's pretty much Microsoft's now.
Yeah. Because now it's built into Bing and everything else. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that was, so Microsoft got beaten by the internet, right? Microsoft Bill Gates admits basically his biggest failure is ignoring the internet, right? Like, it's pretty, wasn't that, was it that and the smartphone? Like Windows and the smartphone and the internet, the idea that we would need the internet as a way to connect all of us. Anyway, two big failures. But now it seems like maybe Microsoft has made a huge move that's now upending Google, because now Samsung admitting that they're moving away from Google search and towards Bing search, because Bing now has ChatGPT built into it. A huge blow, tens of billions of dollars in profit for Google out the window. Samsung moves their smartphones to default Bing search engine. So Google is struggling now to keep up with ChatGPT, and they launched its own competitor called Bard. Watch. So Bard can suggest more high-protein options to add to your vegan diet. It can explain why lightning might strike the same place twice. Bard can outline your blog post about summer mocktail recipes. So this is what Bard is doing. But already there seems to be word that we should look out for how people who want to be cautious about this. Larry Page used it when Musk expressed some concern about the singularity. Here is this. Listen.
And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay. You got me. What are you? Yeah, I'm fully a speciesist. Busted.
So, I mean, what is this, like the Planet of the Apes? Like, you don't want humans to survive? I mean, so if you want humans to continue to thrive and be in control of their own destiny, then you're a speciesist. You prioritize your own species, right? Like, is that okay? I do prioritize my own species. I try not to kill, like when I see bees that land, I very kind to bees and animals and insects. I don't step on them. And when the girls and yeah, Daddy, there's a spider in the bathroom or whatever, I come and I gently move the spider out of there. We don't need to, I'm gonna be killing things. This is an anti-war show after all. I couldn't at the same time then also be killing all sorts of indiscriminate things. So, but yeah, I do prioritize humans. I'm going to put that at the top of the list there. Transhumanism, my friends, though, that's different. Transhumanism, they do not prioritize that. We are not supposed to value humanity any longer because it's elitist. And we've got a story coming up in just a few minutes where we're going to show you the sort of, well, we don't want you to even have babies anymore. We're going to output that to an artificial intelligence lab. Well, we'll just have the babies inside the womb. We'll just take the wombs over here, and all of this will be, we don't need humans to do this anymore. What are you, a speciesist? Speciesist? Look out for this word that encourages us to give up our natural tendency to protect ourselves and our children. That is humanist. Humanist. So unbelievable. What do you guys think about this? Other people saying, oh, so Natalie chimed in. She said, Set My Heart to 5, which is one of the best books that she and I read over the past 5 years. Set My Heart to 5 was such a great book. So funny. Laugh out loud funny about these robots. David in the chat says, if you read this, you are the resistance. You are the resistance. Transcendence. Brave New World. Hey, you left us a super chat. You think the human species are something we can all get behind? The fact that there are those unpowerful places whom do not is cause for hesitation with AI. Take the red pill. Someone says, been boycotting Amazon for almost 5 years now. Cheers to the resistance. Dysgenics. Clayton Remnant says, Clayton, transhumanism is dysgenics? Dysgenics? I don't know if I know what that means, but could you maybe elaborate what you mean by that? Worldwide says it's very quiet without Natalie. I know.
It's just as much talking as when she's here.
Very quiet. Everyone's wondering where Natalie is. It is very quiet. I'm the only one talking. Yes, Natalie is off tonight because our 6-year-old has scarlet fever. Fever that led into scarlet fever, and just back from the hospital with that. So it's been kind of crazy. So we've got one more story we're going to get to here. And for that, we are going to do that story on another platform called Rumble. Rumble.com/redacted is where we are going to go. We're not telling you to go there. You can do whatever you want. You're an independent person. You're a human, a sentient human. You can make your own decisions about everything you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do in your life. Natalie is here, but she's just texting me. So she's not here on the show. So you can't hear her. And you can't see her roll her eyes at me, but you can feel it, you can sense it. So for that, we're going to move over to Rumble. Again, that's where we're going. We're going to end our stream here because we're going to talk about how the U.S. government is now compensating those who have received that little COVID jab. Those people who have had some sort of an adverse effect are now going to be compensated. That is big news. We're also going to tell you about how the FDA is now ending emergency use authorization. What? Yeah, there's a big COVID roundup we're about to have, and we can't do that here on YouTube, as you know, how that goes. So we're going to move over, and we'd love, you can do whatever you want. And the reason I'm saying that is because YouTube just changed their terms of service, and so we can't tell you what to do. Not that we ever could.
Thanks for a whole new floor of eggshells, YouTube. Thanks a lot.
Walking on eggshells, walking on broken glass. So we can't tell you where to go. Not that we would anyway, but we're going to tell you where we are going right now. The live stream will continue right now at this URL right there on that place. So come on over. We're going to have to say goodbye to you.